This podcast is supported by Pharma. America leads the world in medicine development. It matters. We get new medicines first, nearly 3 years faster. 5 million Americans go to work because we make medicines here at home. And not relying on other countries keeps us safe. But China is racing to overtake us. Will we let them? Or will we choose to stay ahead? When America leads, America cures. Let's tell Washington to keep us in the lead. Learn how at americacures.com.
From the New York Times, this is The Interview. I'm Lulu Garcia-Navarro. I've never had an interview quite like this one with Charlize Theron. I came in wanting to talk about her storied career, which began when she was discovered barely out of her teens at a bank in Los Angeles. By her late 20s, she'd produced, starred in, and won an Oscar for the film Monster. While she's been in dark comedies like Tully and big-budget fantasy films like Snow White and the Huntsman, I was most interested in her latest turn as an action star in films like Mad Max Fury Road, Atomic Blonde, the Old Guard franchise, and her newest film Apex, where she kicks butt again, this time while being chased through the Australian wilderness. While we did talk about her roles past and present, our conversation almost immediately took a revealing turn into some of the most painful chapters in her life, I think surprising us both. That includes her experience growing up in a violent home in her native South Africa, her mother killing her father in self-defense, and the repercussions she's lived with ever since. Here's my conversation with Charlize Theron. So we're meeting the day after the Oscars, and I was watching your acceptance speech when you won your Oscar for Monster in 2004. And, you know, you're standing on stage, you're tearing up. It's clearly just this very important moment, which of course it is for any actor. Your mom is sitting in the audience and you thank her for all her sacrifices. When you look back now, what do you think about that young woman and what was happening at that moment?
I feel the first thing that came to mind was just, this is something that this doesn't happen to girls in South Africa. Like, you know, it's like, I remember looking at a map and I was like, God, we're all the way down here. What's going on up there? I remember like feeling very lucky that I made it out here. And like my greatest dream, like my like lottery win would have been to be able to support myself as an actor and not have a second job. Like that was literally what I was like aiming for. And like not just aiming for, like that would have been, I just wanted to like be able to support myself, not depend on my mom or a guy, feel secure and get to do the thing that I absolutely love. But the thing with my mom is I'm going to try and talk about it very professionally because I will tear up. She did sacrifice a lot.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that. And you can tell just in that moment, you know, the connection, the just looking at each other.
Well, I couldn't look at her. I was like, I'm not going to look at you. Like the first part of the speech, I handled it. Like I was like just really excited and shocked. And I was like, do not look at her. Do not look at her. Because I knew that as soon as I looked at her, I was going to feel, I just knew that. Because it was somewhat of a shared experience.
Yeah, I can see you getting emotional now.
No, I'm not.
No.
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's hard not to because it's so real. You know, I'm a mom now and I don't have to sacrifice the things like she did. So I know what she did and I'm very grateful.
I guess since we started here, we'll talk about the movie, but since we're already talking about your family and where you came from, you grew up in South Africa on a small farm.
Yeah.
Tell me about what you remember about growing up there and what your life was like.
I remember very vividly moving to that farm. I was 4 years old. I remember seeing it. I remember it feeling when I was that age, like so vast. It really wasn't. It was like 16 acres, but it just felt like this like vast, because it had, I think they were growing alfalfa on it, and one side they were growing corn on it. So it just had this kind of air of, and they had these two big reservoirs on it. And there was this big, big tree. And I don't know what tree it was, but it was kind of like it greeted you as you were driving in. And I have very, very vivid memories of this tree and climbing it recklessly, barefoot, and just feeling. It was like a sense of freedom for sure.
Were you like a tomboy? Were you an athletic child?
Yeah, no, I definitely liked adventure, and I liked. When I think back now, my every day was filled with kind of imagination. Like, I would go out and go to the garden. I would imagine I was a chef and there was always a story attached. If the dogs came with me, I was like Sheena, Queen of the Jungle. When I started watching movies, I really kind of like started interpreting my movies into my everyday life. So yeah, I loved adventure. I liked getting into trouble too. I like to do things that I knew I wasn't allowed to do, but I was allowed to do so much. Like,
you
crazy.
Were allowed to kind of run wild.
Yes,
crazy
it was.
Thing.
Yeah, it was that. I could take my BMX out and go into like the closest little town to go rent movies. I would tell my mom,
right?
But I could do pretty much anything that I wanted to do.
Did that make you independent?
Yeah.
Growing up, you just felt like you had the run of the world?
Yeah, I was super independent. I feel like that's not unusual, though. I felt like my friends kind of grew up that way, too. I felt like my independence also had to just come from like an emotional place. My house wasn't always stable. And so I felt very responsible to like make sure that like I was taken care of. Like there was this kind of thing that by the time I moved out of the house, I knew how to take care of myself on many levels.
Before we get to what was going on inside the house, outside the house is also a lot of instability. I was looking at your town, and, the mid-1980s in particular were sort of a time of violent uprisings against apartheid that led to a state of emergency in your hometown, Benoni. There was a lot of state repression, resistance. Yeah. You were a very young kid, but do you remember any of that? Did that sort of play into how you saw things?
You couldn't avoid it. Like violence and turmoil was something that was like everyday life in South Africa. If you got in the car, if I went to the bank with my mom, that was something that you just saw on the side of the roads. And for sure, I saw things that I shouldn't have seen at a very young age concerning violence, because that was just the circumstances. So there was a lot of talk constantly about apartheid. It was a hot topic. Like you'd go to a barbecue, that's what everybody was talking about. They weren't really hiding it from the kids.
When you say you saw violence, do you remember anything in particular?
Yeah. Oh yeah, like vividly. It's like tough stuff to talk about. I was like very young. I saw a man burn inside a car on the side of the road.
God.
And a lot of people pulling over and trying to help and not being able to help. I also then later, I saw what HIV and AIDS was doing. Like, I remember people being wheelbarrowed into our house because they knew my mom would take them to a clinic.
You have spoken a lot about the turbulence outside, but also, as you mentioned, inside your family. And your father was an alcoholic. As someone myself who's, dealt with alcohol abuse in our family, it is an incredibly difficult thing, especially for a child to deal with. When did you realize that your own home life was maybe different than other friends of yours?
That's a good question. Pretty young, I would say, really young. I have memories from when I was really young seeing, and it scared me, seeing drunk people, but like really drunk people, like people crawling on the floor, kind of drunk, Yeah, and it was scary in the beginning. Like I remember vividly like seeing my uncle like really drunk, and it was frightening. It was really frightening. But that became so consistent that was every Friday, Saturday, maybe even every Wednesday. Like my dad had built this really big bar inside the house. And again, not very unusual. Like a lot of South Africans have like they love to kind of create a space in their house where they can drink.
And barbecue. And
Exactly. But it became kind of where he lived. It was where you never